Hi, I'm Elise and welcome to Witch Way. Today we'll be delving into the witch lore in Chilling Adventures of Sabrina Part 2. Just a warning, this review will be containing spoilers to Chilling Adventures of Sabrina Part 1 and mild spoilers for Part 2, so if you're not up for that, go check them out before coming on back and finding out the witch lore. Part 2 was released in 2019 and our cast comes together again. We have the Spellman family, Kiernan Shipka as Sabrina, Lucy Davis as Hilda, Miranda Otto as Zelda, and Chance Perdomo as Ambrose. Bring in the other witches with Richard Coyle as Faustus Blackwood, Tati Gabrielle as Prudence Blackwood, Michelle Gomez as Lilith, and Gavin Leatherwood as Nick Scratch. As well as the mortals Ross Lynch as Harvey Kinkle, Jazz Sinclair as Rosalind Walker, and Lachlan Watson as Theo Putnam. Again, Greendale puts us under its spell. Sabrina is now focusing more on her witch studies at the Unseen Academy, where she continues to shake things up, pushing back against Father Blackwood's agenda. But outside forces also threaten the coven, and again Sabrina is fighting against her destiny. But will she once again be forced to accept her fate? As I mentioned in my Part 1 review, this series is based off the comics by Roberto Guerra, but in this one we actually get to see some more comics that helped inspire his take on Sabrina. In Dr. Cerberus's coffee shop, we see Red Circle Sorcery and Chilling Adventures in Sorcery, which Roberto also ended up reviving, but I digress. Once again, this series is packed full of witch lore, so let's check it out. The series opens on Sabrina getting ready for school, and I immediately got flashbacks to the intro to Sabrina the Teenage Witch. We might touch on that in future reviews as well. We then head over to the Unseen Academy. I decided to wait until Part 2 to discuss the Academy, as this is where it features more heavily. I was reminded of the Unseen University from Terry Pratchett's Discworld series, which I highly recommend because witches and his writing is amazing. But back to the Academy. When we are introduced to some of the teachers, some of the names caught my attention.
This is Brother Macon.
Arthur Macon was the pen name of author and mystic Arthur Llewellyn Jones.
Brother Lovecraft.
H.P. Lovecraft was a horror fiction author, and apparently some of his works were inspired by Macon, but I'll touch more on Lovecraft in Season 4's review.
And Sister Jackson.
Who is later confirmed to be Shirley Jackson. If you've been following my Facebook or Instagram, you will know this is based off the real-world author of the same name, who was reputed to be a witch. You also can't miss the giant statue in the main room of the Academy, which apparently depicts the Dark Lord. This is actually a statue of Baphomet, which apparently got the series into a bit of trouble, as it's a replica of the Satanic Temple's Baphomet statue, which they used to combat people hiding their bigotry behind the smokescreen of religion. Literally on Sabrina's first day back at the Academy, she starts shaking things up a bit when she nominates herself as a candidate for Top Boy and is pitted against Nick Scratch. Again, we have inspiration from Shakespeare's Macbeth.
Molted skin of cobra snake, in the cauldron seethe and bake.
Cool it with newborn's blood, and the brew will be firm and good.
In another competition between the two, we hear about some interesting historical people and texts.
And perhaps you could tell me the date of birth of the Magus John Dee.
John Dee was the court astronomer for Elizabeth I, as well as an astrologer and alchemist.
Publication of the Malleus Maleficarum.
1487.
Also known as the Hammer of Witches, pretty much a witch hunter's guide to hunting down witches. And then we hear of a couple of famous witch trials.
The Salem Witchcraft Trials.
1692.
The Pendle Trials.
1612.
As well as a royal consort.
Date of the Sorceress Anne Boleyn.
Born or died?
Born.
1501.
Died.
1536.
Cause of death.
Beheading.
Anne Boleyn was beheaded, but not for being a witch, though rumours did abound in court of witchcraft.
How did the mortals finally murder our beloved Father Gregory Rasputin?
Poisoning.
I'm sorry, but the complete answer
And
is...
beating, and shooting, and drowning. And finally, they destroyed the unholy reliquary containing his mummified heart.
Gregory Rasputin was a mystic who became quite involved with the Russian royal family, and after his death, rumours abounded of how he was actually murdered. Whenever I hear his name though, I can't help but think of his portrayal in Anastasia.
Rasputin.
Sabrina also names 5 parts of the Lesser Key of Solomon, a work describing how to conjure and bind demons.
The Ars Gotia, the Ars Thursagosha, the Ars Paulina,
The Ars Amadel, and the Ars Notoria.
Faustus must be a fan of the Lesser Key of Solomon and conjuring demons, as he has its magic circle tattooed on his back. Faustus must also be a fan of The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, a black and white silent horror film where a hypnotist uses a sleepwalker to commit murders. Faustus uses the same method with his Caligari spell.
Oh, Sabrina. It's a Caligari spell, I think. What? It's like an old spell the warlocks used to use on their wives when they got a bit uppity. It turns them into somnambulists. Sleepwalkers.
Faustus also likes to hang out with other warlocks at Dorian's Grey Club, run by none other than Dorian Gray, the protagonist from Oscar Wilde's A Picture of Dorian Gray. We also see another of Oscar Wilde's characters.
Salome!
From his play of the same name was inspired by the biblical character who asked for John the Baptist's head on a silver platter. It was also revealed at the end of part 1 that we had another biblical character with us all along.
I'm the mother of demons, the dawn of doom, Satan's concubine. I'm Lilith, dear boy.
Sabrina even plays her in an unseen Academy production.
Oh, Stolas, the garden was my rightful home, but I've been cast out for refusing to lie beneath Adam and kneel before the false god. 2 things I will never do.
The oldest story of Lilith being Adam's first wife comes from the alphabet of Ben Sira, and indeed after she was created, Lilith argued that she would not lie beneath Adam as she believed they were created equal.
I wasn't just the first woman, you see. I was the first witch, too. Lilith.
Even though she was the first witch, she still apparently needed to study.
What makes you an expert?
I studied with Nostradamus, Mr. Scratch.
Nostradamus was a French astrologer and apparently a great seer. I can't mention biblical characters without of course mentioning Lucifer Morningstar, aka Satan. He isn't the only angel to make an appearance this season. We are introduced to the angel witch hunters known as the Innocents.
I want to save you. Well, your soul at least.
And ask the witches to repent by reciting the Lord's Prayer.
Recite with me and be reborn in God's love.
This was actually a method used in various witch trials. If an accused witch could recite the Lord's Prayer from start to finish without making a mistake, they were innocent. Though this possibly wasn't an option until after days of starvation or torture, and with your life on the line, even a nervous stutter could disprove your innocence, potentially leading them to death at the stake. Shortly after the coven avoids this fate, Sabrina starts messing around with mandrakes. In folklore, the mandrake root was often associated with witches as an ingredient for their flying ointment, and because of its appearance, representing that of the human body, was thought to have the potential to become animated using certain rituals. Chilling Adventures of Sabrina Part 2 again scores for lore, history, and the craft. My Part 3 Witch Lore review will be coming up soon, but until then, follow me on socials for some extra content. Find those in the links, and remember to hit that subscribe button to stay notified of new content, and thanks very much for watching here on Witch Way.